UB is a major public research institution. Part of our mission is to bring the benefits of our research scholarship and other creative endeavors to the larger society. There are many routes to enabling this transfer to the larger society so that they can benefit. One of these is to partner with the private sector to understand the issues associated with new technologies. Right? In order to do our scholarship, we typically fund our research from one of three sources or combinations. These would be competitive research grants, for example, from state or the federal agencies, philanthropic sources, or corporate and industrial support. Corporate and industrial support is a common and essential source of university funding for research conducted by investigators across disciplines at universities around the world. And it enables education, it ensures the research is cutting edge, and it focuses attention on timely issues. As reported by the National Science Foundation, for example, in 2009, which is the most recent date we can get information, national university research expenditures funded by industry exceeded $3 billion. Following national best practice, UB has established policies that govern disclosure of significant financial interests and sources of support that impact the independence and integrity of scholarship and research undertaken by faculty. We follow these national practices because it is recognized that the source of funding might be perceived as influencing the results that might come from a particular research study. And I just want to emphasize again that we follow best national practices in how we govern the conflicts associated with financial interests. To ensure transparency and adherence to rigorous standards of academic integrity, we focus on identifying and managing these potential conflicts of interest. If the conflicts of interest are determined to be unmanageable, UB won't accept the funding. And all of this is governed by contract, so we know what those conflicts are. Research centers and institutes provide an important mechanism for innovation that brings together groups from multiple disciplines to work on particular topics that keep the university at the forefront as a research and scholarly institution. Centers and institutes are often formed in response to broader societal issues or concerns. UB has more than 150 such research centers and institutes, many of which are funded by state, federal agencies, individuals, philanthropies, and industry. Some of the major research programs at UB that receive corporate and or industry support to advance their research programs include the Humanities Institute that receives support from Microsoft Corporation, the Center for Excellence for Document Analysis and Recognition, supported by the U.S. Postal Service and Lockheed Martin, the Clinical Translational Research Center that is supported by Merck, Boston Scientific, and others, and the Toshiba Stroke Center that is supported by Toshiba and other organizations. There are many more examples than 150 that I'm going into. As with all research at UB, regardless of the funding, it is not the role of the university nor of the funding source to dictate the conclusions drawn by faculty investigators. This is a core principle, and it is critical to the preservation of academic freedom. Faculty sometimes undertake research in areas that are the subject of significant public debate, which is the case in regard to Shale Institute. These activities are supported on the basis of academic freedom and are an essential part of the research mission of our university. All right, so now those are general statements. Now I'll go on to information about the Shale Institute. The concept for the Shale Institute originated with the faculty of UB's Department of Geology. As a national conversation on shale resources and their relevance has intensified, the members of UB's faculty have considered it imperative to include topics on shale, hydraulic fracturing, their health impacts, and how to mitigate the effects that might come from hydraulic fracturing, and their societal impact in their teaching and research, examining this issue from all sides of the debate. The Shale Institute was established by Dean Bruce Pittman earlier this year, following several years of faculty discussion going back to about 2007. As part of its public mission, in the spring of 2011, the Geology Department held a series of lectures sponsored with about $13,000 in funding from various industry sources. These funds financed only the department's lecture series and did not support the Shale Institute, which hadn't yet been formed. Questions have been raised regarding what role industry played in the selection of the director and co-director of the Shale Institute. The dean of the college managed the process that resulted in the appointment of the Institute's director, Dr. John Martin, and co-director, Dr. Robert Jacoby. Dean Pittman's selection process included a canvassing of UB faculty for potential candidates, discussion with the advisory board members of the Department of Geology, some of whom have oil and gas corporate experience, and conversations with faculty from other institutions of higher learning. Both Dr. Martin and Dr. Jacoby, who is a longtime full professor in geology here at UB, were ultimately selected by the dean based on the bodies of their work and peer recommendations. Another question which has been raised relates to how the Institute is funded. The Shale Institute has been funded completely from the College of Arts and Sciences using discretionary funds available to them. However, I wish to emphasize that while the Shale Institute has not received any industry funding to date, they are expected, and it is desirable, for them to generate support for their research and scholarship through competitive grants, philanthropy, and from industry. This, too, is consistent with UB's policies and practices. The Institute released its first report in May of 2012. It was entitled Environmental Impacts During or Shale Gas Drilling, Causes, Impacts, and Remedies. The report was authored by Dr. Martin and 3 faculty members from other universities. The report reviewed the impact of regulations on the incidence of environmental policy violation. The report contained several wording errors, is the best way to describe them. These were immediately corrected by the authors and are well displayed in the cover of the report, which you can find online. The press release associated with the report stated that it was peer reviewed. The report followed an open peer review method. 5 reviewers were publicly identified in the published report and were asked to comment prior to its publication. I note that when publications are submitted to journals, an anonymous peer review process is often used. As this report was not submitted to a journal, there wasn't an editor to send it out and get the anonymous peer reviews. As a result, this different form of peer review is followed. As a note of clarification, parts of the report's been split up into 2 parts and have been submitted to peer review journals, and they're currently under review. It's important to note that in this controversy, there have been no concerns regarding the report that have been raised by the relevant scientific community. Instead, criticism began to surface, questioning various issues related to the Institute's founding funding and the appointment of the director and the relationship between industry and the Institute. A thorough review by Interim Provost Bruce McComb, by myself, and by many offices in Capon Hall has confirmed that no sponsored funding was received by UB for Director John Martin's work on the report. The director and co-director of the Shale Institute are in compliance with UB's disclosure and commitment to policies. So now I'd like to make some key points from my perspective. This issue arose when I arrived at UB. My position is not to defend or detract from shale fracking. Right? I don't have a position on that. Ensuring the integrity of all research conducted at the university remains a priority of paramount importance to UB and for me. My role is to ensure that our policies and practices protect academic freedom across disciplines, to ensure that our research is excellent and that it is conducted with high ethical standards. Enabling our faculty to explore and publish research on any topic, including controversial ones like shale fracking, is essential to sustaining a campus environment characterized by scholarly rigor, academic integrity, and informed debate. These are core principles on which our commitment to academic excellence and integrity are based. As a university, we're continuously exposed to complex issues and events that challenge our policies and practices. With that in mind, as mentioned by Senate Chair here, I've asked Vice President Alex Cartwright and Senate Chair Zubrow to establish a joint committee to provide advice on university policies and practices related to research, scholarship, and publication practices across disciplines with the goal of offering recommendations to develop and strengthen our policies in those areas and to carry out a dialogue on fracking. As a university, it is important that we continuously review our policies and practices, and that's why I've asked the Senate to help us do that. Our faculty body is the appropriate place for such a policy debate to occur. I'm confident that with this approach, any modification to existing policies will be made in a thoughtful and careful manner.